Releasing in Australian cinemas on December 26th is a new film called Swan Song. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking from the US to the writer-director of Swan Song, Todd Stephens. Todd, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Now, this is such an intriguing story about Pat Pitsenberger, the hairdresser, and obviously based on a true story. So how did it all come about that you were able to write and direct this film?
Well, Pat is based on a real person. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, pretty conservative town. And when I was a little boy, I would see this very flamboyant man kind of walking around town with a, velvet fedora and a feather boa and a long brown Moore cigarette. And I was always fascinated with him, I felt like I didn't fit in. He definitely didn't fit in, and I felt like I didn't either. So he was kind of like idol to me. And years later, when I got up the nerve to go to our gay bar in our small town called the Universal Fruit and Nut Company, which we show in the film, there was Pat, on the dance floor, and I felt like I had found my people, my tribe, and that I was home. And so I really made the film, inspired by him. The story is embellished, but inspired by the character. And I really made it like as an homage to all the, people who had the courage to be out back in the 70s and 80s, and really paved the way for us today. So.
Okay, well done on being able to tell that story. It's
Thank you.
And of course, front and center is Udo Kier, who has an incredible number of credits. He's been in so many films. Was he always involved in the film? How did it come about that he starred in it?
No, he wasn't. I didn't. I'd like to say I wrote it with him in mind, but I didn't. And he was my casting director's idea. And at first I was like, you mean the German villain guy? I did. I mean, I loved Udo, but I just didn't see him at first. The real Mr. Pat was from West Virginia, and he didn't have a German accent. And, but once I started thinking about it, I realized that it was really kind of perfect. And I went out and met Udo. He lives in Palm Springs, and I think when he opened his door to his house and introduced me to his dog, he said, "Meet my dog, Liza Minnelli." And pretty much in that moment, I decided I was gonna work with him. And we became friends, and we knew each other for about a year before we actually shot. He helped with a Kickstarter campaign that helped get the movie financed. And so yeah, by the time the cameras rolled, we were buddies, which was really cool.
Well done on that, because he does give an incredible performance, and yeah. You obviously work very closely with him because he's close up in so many scenes in the film, and he has to do lots of walking and all that sort of thing as well. Yeah. So yeah. You must have spent a lot of time rehearsing and practicing the shots, perhaps, to get it all right.
That's an interesting that you say that. Udo actually did not want to rehearse. I usually do. Every other film I've done, I've spent about a week before we shot rehearsing. But Udo is not that kind of an actor. He's more about just being in the moment and being spontaneous and just kind of reacting to what's happening in the moment, as opposed to trying to plan how he's going to react and stuff. But so that scared me at first because, like I said, I'm used to rehearsing, but I knew that, that was going to be the best way for him to get the best performance out of him. And obviously it worked because he's brilliant. The one thing he did want to do is go to the different locations and spend time there and just really absorb, Pat's nursing home room and, the hair salon and just all the bar and all the different locations. He wanted to see all the locations, but we didn't actually rehearse. That said, we had talked about the character for a year, like I said, leading up to the shoot. So We had gone through it pretty well by the time we shot.
Okay, well, very good. And of course, speaking of locations and so on, Sandusky, Ohio, it sounds and looks like a rather intriguing place, and that's your experience as well. Was it easy to shoot in locations there?
It was, because it's my hometown, and it's the third film I've shot there. Although the first one was 20 years ago, and that didn't go quite as well. But this time, my hometown really got involved, and everyone was so supportive. The actual mayor of the city, people donated spare bedrooms. It was a fairly low budget film, so it was kind of like beg, borrow, and steal kind of thing. And people were donating, spare bedrooms for us to stay in, so we couldn't afford hotels, and letting us borrow props and acting as extras and all that. So it was a dream come true to like go home and be so supported by the town where I grew up. It was amazing. And people remembered the real Mr. Pat. And, a lot of people were like, oh my God, my Aunt Betty went to Pat, or my grandmother, or whatever. So he was kind of a legend in the town. So that helped.
Okay, very good. And it's also interesting about the changes to the gay experience over the years, which you exemplify in the film as well, that there's been such a change in terms of attitude to the people in a small town that might be quite hostile, in fact, originally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I went to shoot my first film there 20 years ago, which was Edge of 17, sort of my autobiographical coming of age story, it was not good. Like we actually decided to keep the gay subject matter of the film a secret, because we felt like people wouldn't want to help us. And people did find out, and it caused some controversy. And so it was a challenge, but when I went back home to start pre-production, the day I got there, my hometown was having the third annual Gay Pride Festival, which really blew my mind, And so just, in a way, 20 years is a long time. In a way, it isn't. But in 20 years, I could see how, just looking at my hometown specifically, attitudes were completely different and completely evolved, So it really is fascinating how things change for the better, I mean, there's gay pride flags that fly downtown, not just during Pride in my hometown. So it's sometimes hard to believe it's the same place I grew up.
It's so interesting to witness those changes. Yeah. Now, the casting is so interesting. Apart from Udo, who is so good in the film, Jennifer Coolidge, Linda Evans, and your other cast. How did they get involved, and how easy was it to work with them all?
Linda, was such an honor to have her be involved, because she's basically retired and she hadn't done a film in like 20 or 25 years. So she was just very touched by the script, and it really spoke to her personally. So, none of the actors did it for money. They did it because they believed in the project. And, I mean, she's just been incredibly supportive. Jennifer was much harder to get to. She was my first choice for the part of Dee Dee, but again, when you don't have a lot of money and you're trying to making offers to like agents and managers, and it's like an indie low budget film, a lot of times they don't even tell their client about the project. So I was just about to give up. And at the last minute, I tried Jennifer. I looked Jennifer up and saw that she had a new manager, and we reached out to her. And like 2 weeks later, Jen was like there filming. So, and she had no idea that we had made an offer to her like 6 months ago. So you just have to be persistent and keep trying. And they were amazing to work with. I mean, we shot the movie in 18 days. So, we had to, we were moving pretty fast, but Jennifer's amazing. I mean, she's so wonderful at improv, and half the things she says in the film, like I wish that I wrote, but I didn't. So I just adored both of them. I mean, they're so wonderful, and just really added so much to the film.
Yes, yes. And Michael Urie, who's also in it, and other cast, as you say, some of them are extras or people who live in the town.
Right. Yeah. A good number of the cast were Ohio actors, and yeah, I just think we spent a lot of time casting to make sure that it had the right feel. So I'm very, very proud of the acting in the film.
Yeah, no, it worked out really well. And how did Udo react seeing himself on screen in this role when he saw the final version?
He was very moved, and he really loved it. I mean, we saw it at a festival in Dallas for the first time, and actually I had sent him a screener before, so he had seen it already, and he called me and was just like, so happy. But he was so excited to see it on the big screen, and we didn't know whether we ever would because of COVID, but finally we got the chance. And yeah, I mean, it's really a role of a lifetime for Udo. And he and I just talked to him about a half hour ago. So he and I have become family. And yeah, I mean, I just felt like every day I was watching him, it was like watching a master class in acting. He was so brilliant. And yeah, so he was really happy. He was super happy, which makes me very proud, because you're always worried, like, God, what are they going to think, and yeah, he loved the film.
Excellent to hear that. I'm also intrigued by two other aspects: the obviously the cinematography, the use of the camera and how you shot the film, but also the use of music and songs that permeate the film. Can you talk about your choices there?
Yeah, I mean, I have this amazing music supervisor named Jerry Gershman, who's done two of my other films. And, when I'm sitting here writing, a lot of times I make like a playlist. It used to be like a mixtape on a cassette, and then a CD. And now, I make like a playlist. And so I'm really listening to these songs when I'm formulating the ideas. And some of these songs in this film, like Judy Garland and Shirley Bassey and Dusty Springfield, these were some of the real Mr. Pat's favorite songs. And miraculously, every single song that I wanted to put in the film cleared. One the Shirley Bassey song, "This Is My Life," which was Mr. Pat's theme song, cleared the night before we did the final mix. So it just felt like I had some angels watching over me, and everything. Yeah, I'm just so proud of the music. Like, I like to say that it's kind of part of the foundation of the film instead of just being something slapped on top of it. It's kind of part of the DNA. So thank you for noticing that. And the cinematography was done by Jackson Warner Lewis, and we really wanted to make it look like it was shot on film. I wish that I had the budget to actually shoot on Super 16, but we did shoot with some vintage lenses from the 70s, and everything was handheld, and it really gave it that sort of real lived-in quality. And the close-ups of Udo's face are so beautiful. So I'm thrilled at how the film wound up looking.
Absolutely. No, it works really well, both their cinematography and music. Now, I noticed with the film's release, as you mentioned, film festivals, and you've received awards already for the film, including, I noticed, the Norway film critics have given your film.
We did.
Best film. It's most incredible, the reaction that you've had.
Yeah, I know. And just the other day, we found out that we were nominated for Indie Spirit Awards here in Udo and I. And yeah, it's won a lot of film audience awards, and he's won awards for his acting. So yeah, I'm blown away. I've just been blown away by the response.
It is.
Yeah.
It is quite incredible, and as you say, the Indie Spirit Award nomination as well, which is fantastic. Just as an aside, I found it interesting that this year another film is being released called Swan Song with
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali. I mean,
Yeah.
how ridiculous a coincidence is that?
I know. Yeah, I know. And we thought about changing our title, but I sort of agonized about it for a weekend because we knew that the other film was out there, and but I just couldn't find a better name for it, and so yeah, but it's a little strange, but it seems to be working out okay.
Yeah, look, I'm sure people won't confuse the two films at all.
Right, they're very different.
They are absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, Todd, in terms of your own career, you've made a number of films. You mentioned Edge of 17, another gay movie, Gypsy, 83, and so on. How do you choose the films that you make?
It's not easy. I mean, sometimes it takes, some real time to figure out what the next one's going to be, for me anyway. It's such an investment, you spend maybe years writing it and getting it made, and, years kind of putting it out. And they're like children, I feel. And so you really want to make sure that it's an idea you're passionate about before you kind of jump off the cliff. Usually, there's some part of me in the film. I try to put myself into it. In a lot of ways, Swan Song is about, I hadn't made a film in like 10 years before I made Swan Song. So part of it was of writing this character that had lost his love for kind of his art of hairdressing, and rediscovering it was my way of telling myself I could still do this, and so yeah, there's always big pieces of me in my characters. So yeah, but yeah, it's not easy. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing next, and that's I try to like just relax and let it come and not put too much pressure on, because it's tough. Yeah, it's a big commitment.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned about the impact of COVID and so on. And I suppose you, as well as so many people in the film industry in the US, if we focus on that, have been impacted by COVID. And so the whole film industry has been shaken up, I suppose, as well as streaming services being much more prominent.
Yeah, I mean, we did do a theatrical release here in the US this summer, and it went well considering, but it's just not, things just aren't the same, and now with this new variant, it's like, it's just one thing after the other. But so I think even before that, though, it seems like, especially with independent stuff, sad to say that, people, I'm a film professor, so it's like I've seen even in my film students that over the years they watch more and more things on streaming services rather than going to a theater, which to me is criminal. You know what I mean? Because to me, cinema is meant to be experienced collectively, and and that thing where you just have your complete focus on the film and no text and no emails or anything. It's just like you just get lost in the dream together. But it's just the reality that more and more people are watching it on things like Hulu and Netflix, and it's just the way it is. I hope that cinemas don't. It seems like there'll always be the bigger movies, the Marvel movies and stuff like that, on playing on screens. But I really hope independent theaters like survive. But it's tough. It's been a challenge.
It has. interesting you mentioned you're a film professor. In teaching your students about film and about what to look for in analyzing and understanding film and filmmaking, what's your approach?
Well, I mean, I always tell them to write what they know, or to kind of like I was saying before, take pieces of themselves and put it in their work. That's the most compelling stuff, is when it's true. It doesn't mean it has to be directly autobiographical, but there's this Carrie Fisher quote that she said, "Take your broken heart and turn it into art," and that's kind of like that's kind of my mantra. So I try to pass that along to my kids.
Okay. So are there any particular films or filmmakers that inspire you, or that you relay, apart from yourself, of course, you relay to your students and so
on? I'm a big fan of Alexander Payne, who did Nebraska and Election and About Schmidt, and so he was kind of a big influence on this film. In the past, I've been like John Waters is a huge icon of mine, who was a big inspiration on Another Gay Movie, which is like a whole other side of myself. But yeah, those are a couple of my favorites. Just so many. Yeah, there's just so many. I'd have to make a list for you.
Of course. No, I understand.
Yeah.
And is there anything you've seen recently that has impressed you?
I just watched Zola, which really I thought was amazing. It really kind of blew me away, and it was just such a fresh new vision, So that I watched that a couple nights ago. So that's my favorite new thing.
Okay, yeah, it's a recommendation. Yeah. Well, look, Todd, congratulations on Swan Song, which is, as I say, releasing in Australian cinemas on December 26th. And I look forward to your next film. And Todd Stephens, thank you so much for talking to me about Swan Song.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
All the best. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good one. Happy holidays.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.